From the moment we begin to understand ourselves, we notice the subtle ways in which the world around us can shape, uplift, or deplete our energy. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, spent his life exploring the depths of the human soul, the hidden corners of the mind where light and shadow coexist. And it is here, in this delicate interplay between light and shadow, that he offers profound insight into why some people seem to drain our energy without intention, almost as if we are caught in an invisible current we cannot see but feel deeply. Jung teaches us that every human being carries an inner world, a complex tapestry of conscious and unconscious forces. Some of these forces are light, creative, life-affirming, and expansive. Others are shadows, unacknowledged, unresolved, carrying fears, pain, and unresolved conflicts. When we interact with another person, it is not merely a surface exchange of words or gestures. Our inner worlds resonate with theirs, sometimes harmonizing, sometimes clashing. And when someone's shadow, heavy and unintegrated, comes close to us, it can pull at the threads of our own energy, leaving us feeling weary, tense, or even anxious, without understanding why. It is not that these people are inherently malicious or seeking to harm. Often, they are simply unconscious in the deepest sense, unaware of the weight they carry, unaware of the ripples they send into the world. Jung describes this as the projection of the shadow, a phenomenon where one's unresolved inner turmoil is unconsciously projected onto others. When we are the recipient of such projections, we may feel drained, burdened, or emotionally raw. It is as if the other person's unresolved fears and tensions seep into us, and unless we have cultivated awareness and boundaries, we unconsciously absorb them, mistaking them for our own feelings. To understand this more deeply, we must recognize that human energy is subtle, fluid, and profoundly interconnected. Every encounter, every conversation, carries more than the words spoken. There are rhythms, tensions, silences, and undercurrents that communicate at a level beyond the rational mind. Some people, through their own unresolved pain, create an emotional gravity that draws us in. We feel compelled to respond, to soothe, to mirror, or to fix, and in doing so, we spend energy that was never meant to be spent on another's inner battles. This is why after certain interactions we feel depleted, even if externally nothing demanding occurred. Jung also emphasizes the importance of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, where one learns to recognize and integrate both light and shadow within oneself. As we advance in this journey, we develop a resilience, a subtle immunity to the unintentional drain caused by others' projections. We learn to identify where our own feelings begin and end, to discern between our energy and that which is borrowed often unconsciously, from those around us. Through reflection, meditation, and conscious self-awareness, we become like a well-tuned instrument, capable of resonating with others without absorbing their dissonance. Yet, Jung warns, this is not a matter of cold detachment or isolation. It is a delicate balance, a gentle strengthening of the self that allows us to maintain empathy, compassion, and connection while preserving the integrity of our own energy. When we fail to recognize the mechanisms of energy drain, we unconsciously surrender our vitality to others, and life becomes a cycle of exhaustion, frustration, and subtle resentment. But awareness changes this pattern. Awareness allows us to meet others fully, to understand them without losing ourselves, and to navigate our social worlds with clarity, calm, and dignity. In the presence of those who unconsciously drain our energy, the key lies in conscious observation. Jung invites us to notice the subtle shifts in our body, in our mood, in the quiet thoughts that arise when someone's presence feels heavy. This noticing is not judgment, it is recognition. It is the first step toward reclaiming our energy, toward establishing a boundary that is invisible yet potent. Energy, after all, is sacred. It is the fuel for creativity, love, joy, and insight. When we allow ourselves to be drained constantly, we diminish the very essence that makes us fully human, that allows us to engage with life in depth and authenticity. To live in harmony with these insights, Jung suggests an inner cultivation, a quiet dedication to understanding ourselves. Journaling, reflection, time in solitude, and conscious breathing are simple yet powerful practices. They anchor us to our own inner world and help us discern the difference between our authentic feelings and those unconsciously borrowed from others. This is not an act of ego, but of survival and self-respect. It is a compassionate response to the truth that while the world is interconnected, each person is responsible for their own shadow. We cannot carry the weight of everyone else without losing ourselves. As we begin to understand the subtle mechanics of energy, we start to see patterns. Certain relationships, environments, and situations consistently leave us feeling depleted. Jung would suggest observing these patterns, not to criticize or condemn, but to understand and navigate them. Some people may need to be approached with caution, others with distance, and some with loving boundaries. In every case, the guiding principle is clarity, for clarity restores energy and strengthens the self, allowing us to engage with life without unconscious surrender. And so, in these early steps of understanding, we begin to recognize that energy drain is neither personal nor shameful. It is part of the human condition, a reflection of the unconscious forces at play within ourselves and around us. By bringing consciousness to these forces, by cultivating presence and self-awareness, we gradually reclaim our vitality. We create space to breathe, to think, to feel, and to connect without compromise. In this process, life becomes richer, not because the world changes, but because we do. As we move deeper into Jung's understanding, we begin to see that energy drain is not only about others, it is also a reflection of how fully we inhabit ourselves. People who leave us exhausted often touch parts of ourselves we have neglected, avoided, or suppressed. They mirror aspects of our own shadow, and in their presence, the unexamined corners of our psyche stir. This is subtle and often unsettling, yet profoundly instructive. The exhaustion we feel is, in part, a call to awareness, a quiet invitation to examine our inner life, to integrate the pieces we have left fractured. Jung speaks extensively about the shadow because it is here that we often encounter the source of energy loss. The shadow is the repository of denied instincts, emotions, and desires, and when it is projected outward, it appears in the behaviors of those around us. Someone's criticism, anger, or neediness may stir echoes of our own unresolved fears. It is not coincidence that certain people feel exhausting while others feel life-giving. Life-giving individuals resonate with our conscious self, with the parts of us that are balanced and integrated. Energy-draining individuals trigger the unacknowledged, the denied, the parts of us we have yet to meet. Recognizing this truth is not easy, but it is liberating. It shifts the narrative from blame to understanding. We are not simply victims of other people's moods. We are participants in a delicate dance of consciousness, energy, and projection. One of Jung's most profound insights is that no one can steal our energy without our tacit permission. This is not to suggest we are at fault when we feel drained. It is to reveal a subtle truth: energy follows attention. When we focus unconsciously on someone else's turmoil, when we absorb it, mirror it, or carry it within us, we expend our vitality. But when we learn to observe without merging, to listen without internalizing, to witness without surrendering, we create a protective clarity. Boundaries are not walls. They are currents of awareness that allow energy to flow without being lost. They are invisible shields that preserve our capacity to love, think, and act. This is why self-knowledge is so central to managing energy. Jung's method of active imagination, reflection, and journaling encourages us to engage with our inner world intentionally. By observing our reactions, we uncover the subtle ways we give away energy unconsciously. Perhaps a passing comment triggers insecurity. Perhaps a friend's worry ignites anxiety we did not know we carried. Perhaps an encounter leaves us tired because we instinctively try to fix, absorb, or soothe. These are not failures. They are invitations. Invitations to deepen, to recognize, and to reclaim what is inherently ours. Equally important is the cultivation of relationships that honor energy as a living force. Jung understood that human connection is nourishing when it is conscious, reciprocal, and grounded in authenticity. With energy-conscious relationships, there is give and take, yes, but it is measured by presence, understanding, and mutual respect. We learn to recognize when to step forward, when to step back, and when to allow natural distance. Energy is not infinite, and honoring its rhythms is a form of self-love. By approaching connections this way, we transform our interactions into spaces of renewal rather than depletion. Yet, Jung never framed this as a rigid rule or moral dictum. It is a gentle practice, a lifelong cultivation of sensitivity to ourselves and others. He reminds us that life is inherently interdependent, and that sometimes, energy must be shared, even at a cost. The key is conscious choice, knowing when we are giving from our abundance, and when we are giving from our deficit. This distinction, subtle yet powerful, is at the heart of emotional and spiritual maturity. It allows us to maintain generosity without losing the essence of who we are. In practical terms, Jung encourages small but profound actions. Pausing to breathe before responding, noticing bodily tension, and identifying subtle shifts in mood are all ways to reconnect with our inner energy. Silence becomes a tool of clarity. Reflection becomes a practice of reclaiming the parts of ourselves unconsciously surrendered. Over time, these practices create resilience, a soft yet powerful immunity to energy drain. They do not remove the shadows from the world, but they allow us to navigate life with steadiness, grace, and conscious engagement. Jung's teachings also point to the importance of accepting human imperfection. People who drain us are not anomalies. They are expressions of the human struggle with shadow, the universal challenge of self-integration. By seeing them this way, we cultivate compassion alongside discernment. Compassion softens the emotional friction, while discernment preserves our vitality. This dual awareness, of both human frailty and the sanctity of our own energy, creates a profound inner balance, a place where empathy and self-preservation coexist harmoniously. Finally, Jung teaches that energy is not simply a personal resource but a sacred medium through which life expresses itself. Our energy fuels creativity, thought, emotion, and connection. It is the currency of consciousness itself. Protecting it, therefore, is not selfish, it is an ethical commitment to living fully, deeply, and authentically. It allows us to engage with the world without being swallowed by it, to extend care without depletion, and to navigate human complexity with awareness and dignity. As we move further into Jung's teachings, we begin to see that reclaiming our energy is not merely a defensive act, it is a transformative process, a subtle alchemy that changes the way we experience life. The people who drain us are mirrors, and through them, we can glimpse aspects of ourselves we have yet to meet. In this light, energy drain is not simply a problem to be solved, it is a doorway to deeper self-understanding, a prompt to examine our inner patterns and the ways we unconsciously give away our vitality. Jung observed that many of us live in a state of fragmented attention. We are pulled by external demands, by the emotions and expectations of others, by the unconscious forces within ourselves. In this fragmented state, we are especially vulnerable to energy drain. The unexamined parts of our psyche resonate with the unresolved tensions of those around us. A careless word, a subtle gesture, or even a silent presence can stir this hidden energy, and we absorb it without realizing. The exhaustion we feel is a signal, a quiet alarm, pointing to the places within ourselves that require attention and care. Understanding these patterns begins with observation and reflection. Jung encourages us to notice not only the obvious moments of fatigue but also the subtle shifts in our mood, focus, and physical state. Where do we feel tension in our body? What thoughts recur after a particular interaction? Which relationships leave us consistently depleted, and which leave us feeling replenished? These observations are not for judgment, they are for knowledge, the kind of knowledge that allows us to navigate the human landscape with wisdom rather than reactive habit. Energy reclamation is, in essence, a practice of conscious boundary setting. It is an art of noticing where our energy ends and another's begins. In daily life, this can look like small, deliberate choices, pausing before responding to an emotionally charged message, excusing ourselves from a conversation when we feel our vitality slipping, or simply taking a moment to breathe and center ourselves in our own presence. These actions may appear subtle, but their cumulative effect is profound. Over time, we develop a kind of resilience, a quiet strength that allows us to meet others fully without being overtaken by their shadows. Jung also emphasizes the role of the inner companion, the voice of conscious awareness within us that observes without judgment, that witnesses without being swept away. This inner presence is cultivated through practices like journaling, meditation, and reflection. It is the voice that says, "This is not mine to carry, this is a reflection, a projection, a moment of energy that need not be absorbed." With this inner companion, we can navigate social interactions with clarity, responding from our center rather than reacting from a place of unconscious absorption. Yet Jung's insights go further. He reminds us that energy drain is not simply an interpersonal phenomenon. It is deeply entwined with our life choices and inner cultivation. We grow more vulnerable to the drain when we neglect our own needs, suppress our feelings, or deny our desires. When we fail to nourish ourselves, we enter the world in a state of subtle depletion, and the currents of other people's energy easily sweep us along. By tending to ourselves, by honoring our rhythms, desires, and limits, we create a natural buffer, a vitality that allows us to interact with life fully without being drained. The process is gradual, gentle, and deeply human. It does not demand perfection, nor does it create distance from empathy or connection. On the contrary, as we reclaim our energy, we become more present for others, more attuned, more capable of sustaining meaningful relationships. Energy management, in this sense, is not selfish. It is the foundation of authentic engagement. It is what allows us to give fully without losing ourselves, to love without depletion, and to witness the human experience without absorbing every shadow we encounter. Jung also points to the necessity of discernment in relationships. Some interactions are fleeting and manageable, others are persistent and draining. Through careful observation, we learn to distinguish between the temporary and the chronic, between moments that call for patience and those that demand protective distance. This discernment is not a moral judgment on the other person. It is a recognition of the natural limits of our energy and the subtle interdependence of human lives. In this recognition, we find balance, an inner equilibrium that allows us to be compassionate yet centered, generous yet protected. Ultimately, Jung's teachings reveal that energy is sacred. It is the medium through which our consciousness, creativity, and presence flow. When we allow it to be scattered, borrowed, or absorbed unconsciously, we diminish our capacity for life itself. But when we cultivate awareness, integrate our shadow, and practice conscious boundaries, we reclaim not only our energy but our agency, our clarity, and our joy. We begin to live not in reaction to the currents of others but in alignment with the natural flow of our own inner world, engaging with life intentionally, fully, and deeply. As we move into the practical and experiential dimensions of Jung's insights, we begin to understand that reclaiming our energy is both an art and a practice, a subtle weaving of awareness, boundaries, and compassion. Life will inevitably present encounters that challenge our vitality. Colleagues who unconsciously demand our attention, friends whose unresolved pain seeks reflection in us, or family members whose habits stir buried tensions. These moments are unavoidable, yet how we navigate them can transform our experience profoundly. Jung teaches that the first step is acknowledgement. To recognize that our energy has been affected, to feel the subtle heaviness, the tension, the depletion, is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the mind and body signaling that a boundary has been crossed or blurred. From this place of recognition, we can consciously decide how to respond, rather than reacting unconsciously as we often do. Pausing before we speak, before we act, before we absorb another's turbulence, allows us to reclaim the thread of our own energy and return to a centered state. Another essential practice is emotional labeling. When we notice a sense of exhaustion after an encounter, Jung would encourage us to name it. This tension is not mine. This anxiety is a projection. By labeling our experiences, we separate our authentic feelings from those unconsciously borrowed from others. This practice may seem small, yet it has an extraordinary effect. It teaches the psyche to distinguish, to discern, and to reclaim what is uniquely ours. Over time, it cultivates an inner sanctuary, a place where our energy is anchored and protected, and where presence is chosen rather than imposed. Equally powerful is the practice of selective engagement. Not all energy-draining interactions require confrontation or distance, yet some do. Jung understood that discernment is a sign of psychological maturity. To engage selectively is to recognize that our vitality is precious, that life offers finite energy to navigate its vast complexities. Sometimes, choosing silence, stepping away, or limiting exposure is not avoidance but an act of alignment, a conscious commitment to living in harmony with our own inner rhythms. In this discernment, we find freedom, the freedom to be compassionate without surrendering our essence. Jung also emphasizes self-nourishment as an antidote to energy drain. Sleep, creative expression, reflective solitude, and joyful engagement with life are not indulgences, they are necessities. When we fill our inner well, we create a natural resilience, an internal reservoir of vitality that allows us to face challenges without being depleted. This is why Jung placed such importance on individuation, the ongoing process of integrating every part of ourselves. Each moment of self-attention, each act of reflection, each choice to honor our needs strengthens this reservoir. It is in this strengthening that we cultivate a quiet immunity to the unconscious pulls of others' shadows. There is also a subtle art in the cultivation of empathy. Jung's teachings remind us that compassion does not require absorption. We can witness another's pain without internalizing it, offer support without surrendering our energy, and connect deeply without losing the integrity of our own inner world. This is the paradox of mature empathy. The deeper we can feel, the more conscious we are of where the other ends and we begin. When we embody this awareness, relationships transform. Connection becomes nourishing rather than draining, and encounters that once left us exhausted now leave us enriched with understanding, insight, and presence. In addition, Jung's reflections guide us toward the understanding that not every drain can or should be resisted. Some interactions ask for temporary expenditure, a gift of our vitality in service to love, friendship, or necessity. The key lies in conscious choice, giving from our abundance rather than from deficit. When energy is given consciously, it replenishes rather than diminishes. When it is given unconsciously, it leaves a subtle residue of depletion, a quiet erosion of vitality. Jung teaches us to recognize this difference, to act from awareness rather than compulsion, and to restore balance in the cycles of give and take. Ultimately, Part 4 is about integration, the integration of knowledge, practice, and lived experience. We learn to observe energy drain without judgment, to respond with clarity without resentment, and to cultivate resilience without detachment. Life becomes a delicate dance, a series of conscious choices that allow energy to flow naturally, fully, and intentionally. Through these practices, we move closer to Jung's vision of a balanced psyche, one that is aware of shadows, resilient in the face of projection, and generous without losing itself. In this space of integration, we find a profound liberation. The world no longer saps our vitality unconsciously because we navigate it consciously. We recognize that energy is sacred, that our presence matters, and that life is richer when we engage fully yet mindfully. In every encounter, we carry the possibility of renewal, insight, and connection, and through this careful stewardship of our energy, we come to live with authenticity, grace, and enduring inner strength. As we arrive at the culmination of Jung's insights, we begin to see the full landscape of energy, shadow, and human connection. Life, he teaches, is a constant interplay between forces we can see and forces that move beneath the surface. Some of these forces uplift us, others challenge us, and many exist in that subtle, liminal space where learning, growth, and transformation occur. Recognizing energy drain is not merely about protection, it is about conscious participation in life, an awareness of the currents that shape our inner and outer worlds. Jung reminds us that the most profound transformations occur when we integrate rather than resist. The people, situations, and energies that once left us depleted are not enemies but teachers. They reveal what is unacknowledged within us, what we have yet to nurture or confront. Through conscious observation, reflective practices, and careful boundary setting, we learn not only to protect our vitality but to understand the intricate ways in which energy flows through human relationships. This understanding is not abstract, it is lived, felt, and embodied. It is the wisdom that allows us to move through the world fully awake, aware of both our own depth and the depth of others. There is a quiet courage in this awareness. It is the courage to face our own shadow, to confront the aspects of ourselves we would rather ignore, and to meet others without merging with their turbulence. It is the courage to choose presence over reaction, to offer compassion without surrender, and to engage with life without losing the sacredness of our own energy. In this courage, we find freedom, the freedom to live authentically, the freedom to love and connect without exhaustion, the freedom to navigate complexity without chaos. Jung also points to the enduring power of reflection. By continually returning to our inner world, we reinforce the distinction between our energy and the projections we encounter. This reflection is not passive, it is active, intentional, and deeply human. It allows us to see patterns, to notice recurring sources of depletion, and to intervene with conscious choice. In this way, we reclaim not only our energy but our agency, the power to decide how we engage with the world, what we carry, and what we release. And in the quiet culmination of this work, we discover a profound truth: that energy, when recognized, nurtured, and protected, becomes a source of deep joy and creativity. It flows through us, enabling thought, emotion, and action to arise with clarity and purpose. We can offer our presence fully, knowing that it is neither borrowed nor diminished. We can meet the shadows of others with compassion, understanding that we are not responsible for carrying them. We can navigate life's demands without losing ourselves, embracing each encounter as an opportunity for conscious connection rather than unconscious strain. Ultimately, Jung's teachings guide us toward a life of balance, presence, and depth. They remind us that our vitality is sacred, that our attention shapes our experience, and that conscious engagement with our inner world allows us to move through the outer world with grace and resilience. The people who once drained us may still exist, the shadows may still appear, but we meet them differently, fully awake, fully aware, and fully ourselves. In this space, life is no longer a series of losses, tensions, and exhaustion. It becomes a field of conscious energy, a living canvas on which we engage, connect, and create. We learn to honor our own needs while honoring the humanity of others, to give generously while guarding our vitality, and to navigate the complex currents of human existence with courage, wisdom, and heart. Jung's insights leave us with a final, comforting clarity. Energy drain is not a personal failing, nor a punishment, nor a source of shame. It is a mirror, a teacher, and a call to self-awareness. By embracing it with presence and reflection, by cultivating boundaries, discernment, and compassion, we reclaim the sacred flow of our own energy. In doing so, we step into a life of authenticity, resilience, and profound human connection, carrying ourselves through the world with dignity, depth, and an unwavering awareness of the delicate power of our own vitality.